Welcome to This Explainer. We're jumping straight into a truly mind-bending paradox today. Think about it. We're looking at a place where the ground beneath your feet has literally never stood still. It's a land constantly battered by massive storms, crushing snows, and, active volcanoes. And yet, somehow, this wildly unstable environment ended up breeding one of the most orderly, refined, and incredibly resilient societies on the entire planet.
Okay, let's really dive into this. Because to wrap our heads around Japan, we've got to look at these two opposing forces that are just constantly pushing against each other. Imagine trying to build a civilization on ground that won't stop shaking. On one hand, you've got the terrifying, violent power of nature, literally thousands of earthquakes every single year, super typhoons, crazy weather extremes. But on the flip side, you have this unparalleled level of human resilience and strict discipline. It's not just about surviving the storm, It's about creating this breathtaking beauty and absolute stillness right smack in the middle of all that chaos.
Section 1. A land of opposing forces, the paradox of Japan.
Think about this number for a second. 3,776 meters. That's the towering height of Mount Fuji. But Fuji isn't just a pretty mountain for postcards, it is a very active volcano. Back in 1707, it had this massive eruption that blanketed the region in ash and literally blew a secondary crater right into its side. Yet beneath all that terrifying, raw power, it rests with this perfectly serene, almost peaceful outline. For centuries, this mountain hasn't just shaped the physical geography of Japan, it's practically defined the nation's spiritual life. It's the ultimate destination for aesthetic pilgrimages, perfectly capturing that crazy balance between terrifying danger and transcendent beauty.
Section 2. Architecture built for survival, defying the elements.
And this brilliantly illustrates how they adapted. Take Shirakawa-go, for example. Up in these extreme snowfall regions, they didn't just build normal houses. They engineered these massive structures with sharply inverted, thatched roofs. They literally look like praying hands. Why? So the brutal weight of winter snow and ice just slides right off. Then, down in Kyoto, you have the Kiyomizu-dera Temple. This place uses a massive wooden scaffold to just hover right above a steep mountain cliff. And here is the truly spectacular part. The refined timber beams in these buildings are carved with joints that lock tightly together to absorb earthquake vibrations. All of this without using a single iron nail. It's a hardcore survival fortress completely disguised as high architectural art. Then, out on the water, there's Miyajima's Itsukushima Shrine. This is a massive, completely exposed wooden structure built right over the tides. Its giant floating torii gate has been standing there for hundreds of years, enduring who knows how many super typhoons and violent coastal waves. I mean, talk about the ultimate physical proof of human endurance, right? Just holding its ground against the absolute chaotic fury of the ocean.
Section 3. Spirituality in the wild, coexisting with the volatile. It's fascinating how this environment shaped their spirituality. The sheer volume of sacred spaces is just staggering. Kyoto alone has over 1,600 temples and around 400 ancient Shinto shrines. But they're not just neatly tucked away in paved city squares. No, they are rooted deep inside harsh mountain forests and clinging to steep rock cliffs. Take the Fushimi Inari Shrine. You've got thousands of brilliant vermilion gates marching straight up a steep, deeply shadowed mountain trail, totally exposed to the elements 24/7. That rugged terrain actually forces a natural separation from the bustling cities down below, carving out these pockets of absolute quiet stillness.
And the nature there is intensely alive. Check this out. 1 meter. That is how fast some of the bamboo shoots in Kyoto's Arashiyama forest can grow in a single day during the rainy season. 1 meter in 24 hours. The biological vitality is just off the charts. The forest creates these towering, dense walls that completely seal off the outside world, locking in this heavy, almost absolute silence. But historically, the Japanese didn't just walk through and admire the bamboo. Ancient samurai actually harvested those hard, flexible stalks to craft bows and arrows. They literally took nature's explosive growth and turned it directly into combat material. Moving further south, you hit Wakayama and Koyasan. We're talking 1,200-year-old sanctuaries completely wrapped in clouds and primeval cedar forests. The Okanoyan Cemetery there is this serene, almost fairy tale-like corridor lined with tens of thousands of ancient trees. But you know what's truly remarkable about these pilgrimage trails? For centuries, they operated as this rare spiritual haven of absolute equality. They welcomed nobles and commoners, men and women alike, allowing everyone to just find peace in the wild.
Section 4. Rebirth from absolute destruction. Cities that refuse to die.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the modern era, specifically by tracing the timeline of Tokyo. It actually started out as Edo, which was just a small, quiet fishing village. Fast forward to 1868, and it's modernized into the new capital. But then, disaster strikes. In 1923, the city was absolutely devastated by the Great Kanto earthquake. And if that wasn't enough, in 1945, it was almost completely erased from the map by the bombing campaigns of World War II. Yet, after every single catastrophic upheaval, Tokyo just refused to die. It resurrected itself from the ashes every time, rebuilding into the glowing, hyper-modern megacity of steel, glass, and incredibly dense railway systems that we know today.
And if you really want to grasp that modern rhythm, picture this. 3,000 people. That is roughly how many pedestrians pour into the street at Shibuya Crossing every single time the light turns green. You have these massive streams of humanity coming from all directions, cutting across each other in this densely packed space, totally surrounded by giant neon screens and concrete. But somehow, it all operates with this flawless, precise order. It's the perfect demonstration of Japan's profound ability to adapt and maintain strict discipline, even inside a suffocatingly crowded infrastructure.
Of course, some of these rebirths carry much heavier scars. Think about Hiroshima. In 1945, it became the first city ever destroyed by a nuclear weapon. The heat was so incomprehensibly intense, thousands of degrees Celsius, that on the steps of the former Sumitomo Bank, the thermal radiation actually bleached the stone but preserved the dark silhouette of a seated person, a permanent human shadow literally etched right into the hard ground, a historical scar within a silent space. Yet from that absolute blackness, Hiroshima rebuilt itself with incredible force. It transformed a site of total, complete devastation into a global symbol of rebirth and really, an eternal beacon for peace.
We see that exact same resilience over in Kobe. Back in 1995, a massive earthquake completely shattered the city's coastal infrastructure, collapsing major highways and entire residential districts. But Kobe, just like Tokyo and Hiroshima, refused to stay down. Today, it's been completely revived into a city of glowing modern harbors. And it's so beautiful. Every winter, they host the Kobe Luminaire Festival. They create these gigantic glowing corridors of light to commemorate the earthquake victims, and the whole city sparkles like a jewel box beside the coast in the crisp winter air. Section 5. Thriving in extreme climates, the deep north and the far south.
Now, what's really interesting is how extreme opposite ends of the geographic spectrum force completely different adaptations. Up in the deep north, Hokkaido is this freezing, silent arena buried under brutal winter snows. And get this, it's sitting right on top of an active geological fire basin. Life up there requires rugged, absolute survival. But then, you travel way down south to places like Okinawa and Ishigaki, and you hit a wild subtropical climate that gets constantly battered by super typhoons. Yet, the people there have built perfectly balanced ecosystems around ancient primeval coral reefs, which has somehow led to incredible human longevity. So you've got two entirely different extremes, but two masterful forms of human adaptation.
To really put that northern extreme into perspective, 5 meters. That is the average annual winter snowfall in the city of Sapporo. 5 meters! Yet, smack in the middle of this extreme weather, Sapporo somehow maintains a booming, highly complex economic system supporting nearly 2 million people. They have these massive fleets of heavy trucks working around the clock to move millions of cubic meters of snow completely out of the grid-patterned city. It's a massive operation just so daily life and even the Winter Olympics can go off without a hitch. And humans aren't the only ones figuring out how to deal with the cold. Over in Jigokudani, which is this steaming hot spring valley, the Japanese snow monkeys have picked up a brilliant survival trick. The story goes that back in the 1960s, a young monkey basically imitated the humans and stepped into the warm outdoor bath of a nearby inn. Well, that monkey passed the habit down to the rest of the troop. So now it's this living cultural legacy. The monkeys literally soak in the steaming water, closing their eyes, resting their heads on the warm stones, basically negotiating directly with the freezing cold. It's amazing. Meanwhile, all the way down in the furious subtropical oceans of the south, the island of Ishigaki is dealing with a completely different monster, relentless super typhoons. But these isolated island communities adapted brilliantly. They literally go out, gather rough fossilized coral, and use it to build solid defensive walls around their homes. They took the debris of the ocean and turned it into biological infrastructure. By doing that, they transformed their island into a survival fortress, one that, by the way, boasts some of the longest living people on the entire planet. So this all leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought. In an increasingly volatile world, what can Japan's survival teach the rest of us?
We've seen how they don't just blindly fight nature's chaos, they bend with it. They engineer massive temples without nails. They rebuild from total ashes using light. And they respect the terrifying power of the earth enough to live in harmony with it. As the rest of the world faces our own growing global extremes, maybe Japan's incredible blend of discipline, respect, and boundless resilience is exactly the blueprint we all need moving forward. Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer with me.